Thank you very much, Congressman. You doing okay tonight?
Doing fine, thank you.
Clearly, the president caved. Why?
Well, I think my friend Mr. Rubenauer put it well. The message and the narrative got defined for the president. He bought into it, and then you could see the trajectory of these whole negotiations. He put Social Security and Medicare on the table, and as it went further and further, you came to the realization that we were going to end up with a deal that was not going to have any revenue generation in it, that we were going to end up with a deal that was going to be based on spending cuts to discretionary programs, and that deal was going to be hard to swallow. And eventually, that's what we got.
What would you have liked to have seen the president do? Because even Mitch McConnell said on Saturday, he said, listen, the president is the one who decides this. If he agrees with us, then most of the Democrats will fall in line. What would you have liked to have seen from the president?
I think he should have used that pulpit of his. He should have kept the 14th Amendment as an option alive, so that he had a bargaining chip in these discussions, that if we didn't reach a point of compromise and balance, then he was going to exercise unilaterally his authority under the Constitution. And the bully pulpit is really important to talk to the American people, get them engaged, a national discussion on what is going on, so that they can weigh in and help guide their elected officials in the right decision. And what the American people wanted was balance, and they didn't get it.
Congressman, I want to ask you this, and really it's about the president's political future and whether or not it's helped him. But let me read this first, and then you can answer. Your colleague in New York, Gary Ackerman, said the Republicans invited the president, quote, to negotiate at a strip poker table, and he showed up half naked. And then liberal columnist Paul Krugman calls the deal an abject surrender. Would the president be better off running as a conservative in 2012?
No, I think the president is he's a Democrat. He's a centrist. We know that. But in any process, you know, the president has to lead his party, and you saw today the effect of his position. You know, our caucus split 95-95 in favor and against this deal, and there's considerable power. There's considerable willingness on the part of some of my colleagues not to let the president down, and leadership was pushing that as well. So is he too conservative? The answer is no.
It's not that is he too conservative, but do you feel that he is strong enough when it comes to these issues and fighting for what Democrats want?
At this point, I think you'll find a great deal of frustration, anxiety on the part of the Democratic base. In all levels, and this is just one in addition to others. And I think there's going to be an increased job that he has on his hands to convince and motivate those voters once again for 2012.
Well, so you think this won't matter by 2012, that he's not going to be hurt by this politically?
No. I think he needs to convince voters that through the next actions that he takes, you know, this fight is not over.
Okay.
And the people that are going to be hurt are small businesses, students, and senior citizens.
Okay,
so he
Congressman,
has to be engaged in protecting them.
I want to move on to this, because there's this chart that's been going around showing that Democrats are twice as likely as Republicans to want their representative to compromise. Democrats twice as likely as Republicans to want their representative to compromise, all right, to get things done. And then that Republicans are twice as likely to want their representatives to stick to their principles. Would it be better for the country if Democrats were more like Republicans, or perhaps if Republicans were more like Democrats?
I think that's a question I can't answer. I think that for me, and I think for many other people that oppose this deal, we were and wanted a balance. We wanted a compromise. This was not a compromise. This was not the deal that involved all sides sharing in the sacrifice. And so the consequence is not to support it. American people wanted us to get something done. This deal is something that people are going to wake up to in the next few weeks and months and realize that this was not a deal that involved getting something done. On the contrary, it's going to set up a continued fights in this Congress for the next 6, 7, 8 months.
And it's not done until it's done. You know how that is. There's still more votes to be taken. Thank you very much, Representative Raúl Grijalva. I appreciate it. The all-important second stage of the debt ceiling deal involves a bipartisan super committee. It'll have to do something that Congress couldn't, figure out how much to cut from programs like Social Security and Medicare. So Who is this congressional dream team, and how will that process work? Those are good questions. That's why we have people like Tom Foreman who work here at CNN. He knows these types of things. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Don. You're so generous to use the term dream team. You know, people talk about being in the hot seat all the time. Well, there will be no hotter seats anywhere in Washington than those on this special joint committee, because it's actually being designed to recreate in close quarters all the fire and fury that we've seen on Capitol Hill in just the past few weeks. Here's the nuts and bolts of it. I want you to take a close look. What we're going to have is a committee comprised of 12 members. 3 of them are going to be picked by the Speaker of the House, John Boehner. There are going to be 3 of them picked over here by Nancy Pelosi as a minority leader. Then you're going to have the head of the Senate over here, the majority party leader, Harry Reid will pick 3. And then Mitch McConnell and the Republican Party will pick 3 also. That's what's going to stack this up. In theory, these 12 folks will come up with $1.5 trillion in additional debt reduction plans, and that's what they're putting on their Thanksgiving menu, because it's due right before Thanksgiving Day. They've got to put this turkey on the table, and I call it that because I think a lot of people in both parties are going to refer to it as precisely that when it comes around. Then, just before Christmas, the entire Congress has to look on this, and they have to vote yes or no with no modifications, no amendments, just a straight yes, we'll take it, or no, we won't. If the answer is yes, then the president can raise the debt ceiling by $1.5 trillion. If the answer is no, he can raise it by $1.2 trillion, but an automatic across-the-board series of spending cuts will kick in equal to the increase in the debt ceiling. That means cuts to defense programs and non-defense programs as well. That's the plan, Don.
I can't believe you missed this one. You said they were going to have to put the turkey on the table. There's lots of cuts and carving of that turkey that they're going to have.
Isn't that nice? It's very clever.
Hey,
very
Tom,
clever of you.
I've got to ask you, though, Simpson Bowles, a gang of 6, they failed. So what are the chances of this one working? I mean, the odds really are not in their favor.
Oh, yeah, they're heavily stacked against them, because when you think about it, these folks really have a tough job in front of them. They're going to have to grapple with this notion that they're not working in a vacuum. They're going to be picked by party leaders, as we pointed out. Then they're going to be prodded by their parties to toe the party line. For Democrats, that's going to mean pushing the tax increases they didn't get around this time around. For the Republicans, it's going to mean furiously resisting those increases, all amid the rapidly growing tension over the upcoming presidential election, Don.
All right, Tom, you sit in this very chair, so I need a quick answer for you on this one. You know, when your job is to cut, you're going to tick off a lot of people, so who would even want this job?
I don't know. There's some very ambitious people on the Capitol Hill who will try to take this job, but it's going to be very tough to walk through this minefield and come out the other side. You do it, you're a hero. You don't do it, you're by the wayside, and they keep moving on. Hey. It's going to be a tough time, just in time for the holidays,
Yeah,
Don.
you're talking.
Because he simply walked away from taxes, and it is utterly unrealistic in the dire straits we're in to think we can get out of this situation without major tax increases, and soon. We're raising 15% of GDP in revenue, the lowest since the 1950. We're spending 24% of GDP. You could put Attila the Hun in charge of budget cuts, and you still wouldn't have enough to close the gap. We need major tax increases.
I want to ask you something on a personal note, because I believe in full transparency here. It has been a very difficult week for you with your personal finances coming out, that you owe $117,000 in child support that you haven't paid. Yet you haven't gone away. You still keep coming in front of the cameras, and you still keep addressing it. Tell America why you've done that.
Well, again, I was sent here on a mission. This has been a pretty big time, probably the busiest week or two we've had here. This is an important fight and an important debate, and so clearly I was preoccupied and wanted to give my everything to this. When it comes to personal family stuff, look, we've all got stuff. I'm going to take care of that stuff privately and quietly. As long as the people in my district send me here, I'm here to do whatever I can to help save this country for our kids and our grandkids. Because again, this is just a deal, but until we as a country get serious about spending, our kids and our grandkids, I really believe, will never forgive us.
And I have to run here, but do you believe this crisis is behind you and that the people will support you and your constituents will support you next time around?
No. You know, as long as the folks back home agree with what I'm doing and I do what I say I'm going to do, if I'm fortunate enough, they'll reelect me. Look, a lot of these freshmen are not here to get reelected. We're here to respectfully stop this president and stop the spending. And if we have to make some tough decisions and that doesn't get reelected, then you know what? We've done important work.
Hey, thank you, Representative, for answering those questions.
Great.
I really appreciate it.
Great questions and great to be with you.
And up next, given the Democrats' anger over the president's debt deal, some are saying maybe Mr. Obama should run for re-election as a conservative. But first, let's take one more look at that moving moment on the House floor as Gabby Giffords returned to Congress just this evening.
I still have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream today.
Chevrolet is honored to celebrate the unveiling of the Washington, D.C. Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. Take your seat at the table on August 28th.
This is The Network, a network of possibilities.
Excuse me, my grandfather was born in this village?
In here, everyone speaks the same language. In here, forklifts drive themselves.
No, he didn't have, yeah, political matter.
In here, friends leave you messages written in the air.
That's a word.
It's the AT&T network, and what's possible in here is almost impossible to say.
Sweet honey taste. 80 calories per serving. 40% daily value of fiber.
I'm here in the downtown area, and the crowd is growing.
Watching calories at breakfast never tasted this sweet.
I'll go get my bowl.
Or this huge. New Fiber One 80 calories. Yes, you can actually love breakfast.
I love that my daughter's part fish. But when she got asthma, all I could do was worry. Specialists, lots of doctors, lots of advice. And my hands were full. I couldn't sort through it all. With United Healthcare, it's different. We have access to great specialists, and our pediatrician gets all the information. Everyone works as a team, and I only need to talk to one person about her care.
We're more than 78,000 people looking out for 70 million Americans. That's health in numbers. United Healthcare.
Your favorite food's fighting you? Fight back fast with Tums. Calcium-rich Tums goes to work in seconds. Nothing works faster.
Tums. Get your degree online at herzing.edu to prepare you for a career in technology, healthcare, or business. For a limited time, Herzing is offering a free online college prep course. Think of it, a free online course at Herzing. For your free online course, call Herzing University or go to herzing.edu. Call Herzing today, 1-888-345-5138, or go to herzing.edu for your free online course.
Liberals in Congress are not happy with the president's handling of this debt ceiling negotiation. One congressman, Emanuel Cleaver, even called the deal a sugar-coated Satan sandwich. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Earl Blumenauer, who fears that this debt reduction agreement could actually do more harm to the economy than good. Congressman, welcome to you. What do you make of what he said, a sugar-coated Satan sandwich?
Well, Reverend Cleaver has a way with words, but suffice it to say, there are some very real problems involved with this. We're going to move towards additional cutting very quickly at a time when all the experts has told us that this is very likely to make the recovery delayed, maybe even set it back.
Well, that's what I'm going to ask you, Congressman. There are a lot of economists, conservative and liberal, who agree with you on this. So why this whole narrative lately about cutting spending, good, raising taxes, bad?
Well, I mean, I listened to part of your interview with my friend Mr. Walsh earlier. You know, it's absolutely not true what he said. The majority of the public, poll after poll, said they wanted a balanced solution that included some modest tax increases, particularly on the most well-off, reform the tax system, have a balanced approach, have people share in this effort. But what has happened, because they really were willing to hold the economy hostage, there were a number of them that were willing to drive it over the cliff. We've never, ever had the debt ceiling held hostage like this to the exclusion of everything else. And what's happened is it really has shifted some of the discussion with some of the Washington insiders, and I personally feel that the president and his team bought into that narrative too much. The fact is that the Republicans, if they really want to reduce spending, have the tools available to them. They can control what comes through the House with the budget.
So when you say the president and his constituents bought into the narrative too much, what are you saying these are talking points or that were repeated so much that people believe them?
I think the obsession on spending reduction as opposed to having a balanced solution is a loser. That's not where the American public is, and that's not ultimately where we're going to end up. Ultimately, sometime in the next few years, we will be forced to increase revenue, not just because the public wants it, but that's the only way you can bring us into balance. So now, I'd be the first to admit that we need to do things differently. We could have had a bipartisan effort to start drawing down some of the military expenditures. There's a bipartisan coalition that's developing to change agricultural subsidies away from large agribusiness.
Okay, hey, let's not get far off the topic here.
Okay.
Because you call this an artificial crisis, and doubly so because of what you say is a false narrative, what you just said, and then tying the debt ceiling to deficit reduction.
Absolutely. I mean, this is something that was a crisis of choice. The Republicans didn't have to bring us to the brink. Frankly, one of the tools that I wished the president had not taken off the table was the use of the 14th Amendment. I don't think anybody here feels that if the roles had reversed and somehow Democrats had been irresponsible with George Bush instead of increasing the debt ceiling when 7 times, I think, when he was president, if it got to the point where it was going to wreck the economy, I have no doubt that Dick Cheney would have thrown the 14th Amendment switch.
Okay.
We should have kept those sort of things should have been open.
Right, and we don't have a crystal ball, but I think it is fair to say that the previous administration was a bit more direct in their approach than the current administration. There's a perception that this president just sort of sits back from the sidelines and watches things and then steps in maybe at the last minute.
Well, I think that the tax deal that we got last December, we could have gotten earlier and under more favorable terms.
Okay, so listen. Do Republicans and Democrats have the same idea? Because we're hearing that some people don't really know what's in the bill. Do both sides have the same idea of what's in the bill? Because Biden is saying one thing, and then John Boehner is saying another.
Right. Absolutely not, though there is not agreement, and you've heard it. Mr. Boehner indicating that there's no taxation increase that's ever going to occur. The administration feels that there are some opportunities for revenues. There are questions about how the trigger is going to be implemented. I think as we go forward, there will be more clarification. One of the problems when you do something like this at the last minute on such a scale, it's very hard to tie down the pieces, and I think we're going to learn more in the days ahead.
Let me ask you this. So in November, when the Party of 12 come back with their recommendations, revenues, taxes, you think will be in play then?
I think it's very unlikely that the 12 people, the way that it's going to be structured, will come back with Republicans and Democrats, and you know there has to be at least one from each party that agrees with a proposal. I also think that you're going to find that there are ways to circumvent some of the triggers. I will be surprised if this works as advertised.
All right, Congressman, thank you very much. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. Now, Congressman Grijalva